Hi. I wish we could be together like always. I miss you all. But if I close my eyes and take a deep breath, I can feel the love of the Liberty Hill community and the Upton Sinclair dinner. Try it. I want to thank all of you for your generous support and powerful organizing during these unimaginably difficult times. Although we cannot gather in person, I know you will find hope and power in celebrating our beloved community of organizers and donor activists by watching our 2020 Upton Sinclair dinner video, The Fight for Justice Continues. This crisis has laid bare the cruelty of the inequities and injustices in our society. As horrific as this crisis is, it is also an opportunity to remake our society according to our values of love, equity, justice, democracy. We cannot go back to the way things were. We need to chart a new path to a more just and equitable future, and we are together. I want to extend a huge thank you to all of our 2020 honorees for your steadfast commitment to this work. I wish we could honor you in person. Thank you to our 2020 Upton Sinclair Award honoree, the Honorable Eric H. Holder.
Thank you so much for this award. The connection between Upton Sinclair and all of us during this time has not been lost on me. Strikingly, Sinclair brought to the attention of the world the conditions that workers had to face in the meatpacking industry. He ran for governor of California on a progressive platform under a call to end poverty during the Great Depression and to provide for economic security for the elderly. Today, those issues still concern us. In a recession that has been the steepest economic downturn since the Great Depression, and when the fate of workers is so tied to the ravages of the virus amongst us, Liberty Hill continues the work of Sinclair. Your commitment to economic justice, to racial equality, and to environmental reform is more critical today than ever before. I am proud to be a partner in this work, although it saddens me that I cannot join you in person today to celebrate your successes and to join everyone in a call to action. Now, our nation is facing very difficult challenges. In a time when lives and livelihoods are on the line, our commitment to core values is also being tested. Too many have been unable to overcome the partisan concerns that divide us. Too many have been unable to rise above the racism that has been sown amongst us, blaming certain people for the pandemic and ignoring the skewed racial and socioeconomic impact that the virus has had. And too many continue to use this time of national crisis for their own gain by restricting the right to vote and preventing people from participating in the democratic process. But for every person that takes advantage of these fraught times to advance their own agenda, there are also many heroes. The medical professionals who put their lives at risk to save ours, the postal workers, and the delivery crews who allow our households to keep functioning, and organizations like yours, which continue their work to help the most vulnerable communities during a pandemic that has laid bare the injustices in our society. These are the real heroes. These are the people who truly deserve awards like these. These are the people who will bring us out of this crisis. So today, although you honor me, I honor you. Thank you for your service for the past 40 years, but thank you especially for your unwavering commitment to our morals and values in the last few months.
Thank you to our Founders Award honoree, Julie Herman.
Thank you, Shane, and thank you to everyone at Liberty Hill for this really meaningful honor. Thank you to my fellow honorees. I am humbled to be in your company. And thank you to my family and friends who've stepped up to support this work. The cornerstone of my relationship with Liberty Hill are two programs I've been fortunate to create and co-chair in partnership with them and a powerhouse founding executive committee, the XX Fund and the Women Excel Mentorship Program. The XX Fund is a women's giving circle powered by Liberty Hill dedicated to gender justice in LA, helping women and girls and gender nonconforming Angelenos reach their potential, strive for economic justice, and live free from discrimination and violence. When we found ourselves at this early days of this global pandemic and right about the time of the run on toilet paper, members of the XX Fund reached out to ask, what can we do? How can we help? And our executive committee got on the phone with Liberty Hill's unstoppable Sarah Vale. She had already reached out to the grassroots organizations we've historically supported to find out how they were doing and what did they need. It was clear these communities would be disproportionately and severely impacted by COVID and the containment measures. From Mujeres en Acción to Garment Workers Center, from Justice and Aging to Just Detention International, the responses were revelatory. Foster youth kicked out of homes, domestic violence victims trapped in volatile environments, unemployed and often undocumented domestic workers ineligible for federal assistance, garment workers making PPE in unsafe conditions, and so many more. The responses from these community-led grassroots organizations were illuminating. They were creating new programs and services on the fly to address these issues. No one understands the needs of a community better than the people in it. These are the leaders that don't turn away under stress. They lean in. They listen and figure out the best way to help. These are the organizations and leaders that Liberty Hill nurtures and rises up. Nimble doers and thinkers whose creative solutions to systemic problems light the way for all of us to co-create a better future. We put out an emergency funding call, and for members who were able, they dug deep. And in 2 weeks, we raised $160,000 to support 20 grassroots organizations. Many of these groups, not unlike Liberty Hill, lost their spring fundraisers, so these were critical funds needed to support emergency and continuing programs. Long before COVID and long after COVID, these grassroots organizations were and will be the first-line safety net in their communities. They tend to the hardest hit. They befriend the most challenged. And I am fortunate to have the opportunity to follow their lead and have Liberty Hill guide the way, connecting all of Los Angeles to become partners in this mutually healing work. So if you can, support Liberty Hill. Start a giving circle or join the XX Fund. I'm excited to have you with me in this work, creating an equitable Los Angeles. Thank you for your time. I look forward to the day we can be all together again and be safe.
Thank you to our Creative Vision Award honorees, Harold and Stephanie Bronson.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming to the Liberty Hill dinner. We love what you're wearing. Thank you Jackie Castor for agreeing to introduce us. Thank you Paula Litt for asking us to accept this honor. And thank you everyone in the Liberty Hill community for the unending tireless work you do for the underrepresented members in our community. In our family, we like the word mensch so much, it's on my father's headstone at Mount Sinai. A mensch is defined most simply as a human being, but in reality and in practice, it's used to describe someone to admire or emulate, someone with a noble character. So if an entire organization can be a mensch, it's Liberty Hill. We thank you for this honor, and the parking is covered.
Into our 10th year or so as our record company, Rhino Records, was now making enough money to think more charitably, my partner Richard Foose and I were taken by what Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield were doing with their ice cream company, Ben & Jerry's. They developed a program giving a % of their yearly profits to charitable organizations. Rhino executive Gary Stewart introduced us to Liberty Hill, who helped us forge a similar slate of organizations to not only make donations to, but to promote on our product. Interacting with Liberty Hill, we have been continually impressed. As donors, we benefited from their vetting of organizations on areas of our interest. At the same time, they have introduced us to worthwhile charities. This is an organization staffed by caring, smart people. We appreciate all they do to make this a better world and are happy to be supporters and partners in the mission.
Thank you.
And now I'm so excited to introduce our 2020 Upton Sinclair Dinner Awards video, The Fight for Justice Continues. I hope you are inspired by these stories and that you share them with your friends and family. It can be so daunting to look straight in the face of the problems that we have today, and it can be tempting to look away. What gives me hope is working with the grassroots leaders at Liberty Hill Funds who face impossible odds. These folks, they know in their hearts that they are powerful They deserve dignity, love, opportunity, and they fight back.
Almost 7 years ago, I was facing an eviction from a large corporate landlord because I had been illegally foreclosed. I was never expecting anyone to come at my door and knock and tell me, "We just bought your home at an auction." I was in the darkest moments ever of my life, with the uncertainty, the instability, not knowing where to turn to. And when I started hearing victory stories, of course it gave me hope. Once I started coming to the meetings and learning more and how everyone was supporting others, that gave me a sense of I'm not alone.
This moment demands that organizations like ACE and other tenant movement organizations answer the call to organize to keep those folks in their homes, to protect those folks that are in low-income units, so that we truly could have diverse communities.
I was finally able to win after 6 long years of eviction because ACE never let me alone. Almost 7 years, continuous dedication and not giving up. Because the only way we're going to be able to maintain a roof over our home is uniting.
The transformation of Sylvia from homeowner to one of the leading tenant advocates in LA is a really beautiful story of somebody who was determined with every ounce of her being to fight to make sure that her home and family stayed in the shelter that they've lived in forever.
I myself, I'm now in the board of a community land trust because I want to do a lot more for others as well.
And they figure out how to change policies that don't only help them, but help hundreds of thousands of other people.
Donor activism for me is really getting involved in community, so it moves beyond writing a check, and it forces you to develop an understanding about the issues that you're helping to solve.
In 2017, my wife, Susan Watanabe, who cared very deeply about Liberty Hill, learned that she had a brain tumor. And in the ensuing months, our friends set up a fund in her honor called Susan Circle. And for her to be able to see that and to know that that was going to happen after she passed was so meaningful for her and for our family, and allowed us to make a direct contribution to these great people out here doing this great activist work. And none of that would have been possible without Liberty Hill.
Wilmington sits adjacent to the 3rd largest oil field in the nation. The city's regulation for oil drilling is more than 100 years old and it hasn't changed. And you see, that's a problem.
Having asthma isn't normal. Your family members getting cancer, bronchitis isn't normal. These oil drilling sites cause birth defects, headaches, nosebleeds, cancer. No one should ever be facing any of those. And so we think it's really important that we need to implement that 2,500 foot safety buffer between homes and schools.
In 2015, CBE Youth sued the City of LA for rubber stamping permits for oil drilling sites. This became known as the Youth EJ lawsuit, and this case wasn't like many others because it was the first time Black and brown youth served the City of LA for disproportionately impacting communities of color.
We won, and we created a new public process and guidelines for oil drilling.
The young people are what keep me motivated to continue this work in the movement. I want to ensure that our movements are places in which we honor and center the youth leaders.
My generation is the generation that will be affected most by climate change because we won't have a future without this change that we're advocating for.
We do this not because we want to, but because we have to, because our lives depend on it.
We sit in a particularly dark period, but it's in dark times that we remember who we are as progressives and as activists and find a way to tap into our power. And I'm very optimistic about Liberty Hill's role in that process.
The coronavirus has kind of created this situation where people see, oh, we're all connected in this together, and if I don't do something to help this group of people who are on the streets or living in their cars, then I'm actually hurting myself as well.
The progressive movement in Los Angeles is on fire, and I believe we will fight for a roof over every head, end neighborhood oil drilling, and end youth incarceration as we know it. And we're gonna build a powerful base of everyday Angelenos who will never again let somebody tell them that they don't matter or that they don't have power, because they do.